everyone. This is Greg Raduca with Let's Be Clear, Georgia. I want to welcome you to today's webinar, and let's go ahead and get started. Dr. Kevin Sabet and myself are going to give you an update of what's happening with House Bill 722, the medical marijuana bill, and especially important is what you can do about it. As I mentioned, Kevin Sabet is with us today, and he's going to be speaking with you for a majority of the time about our current House bill. If at any time you have questions that you want to ask Dr. Sabet or myself, please use the question box, which should be over to the right of your screen, or just feel free to write in your question or comment in the question and chat box to the right, whatever you're more comfortable with. There are also attachments over to your right, which you can access during the webinar. There are 5 attachments there, which I think you'll find very, very helpful. And all those attachments will also be posted to the website. So, again, Dr. Sabet is the Project SAM co-founder and president. He's one of the foremost experts in the country on this topic. So we're very honored to have him join us today, and thank you so much, Kevin. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and after this slide let Kevin take over, but I'll just say that thank all of you so much who have may have already called in or contacted your senator or representative. It's because of your advocacy and the work of Let's Be Clear, National Families in Action, the Georgia Faith and Freedom Coalition, and Project SAM, that House Bill 722 has been pared down a great deal. We've been incredibly successful in removing in-state cultivation, in-state dispensaries, and unlimited THC with no caps from the bill. We've gone from a 24-page bill to a 7-page bill. So that's a great success at a time when so many states seem to be going in the opposite direction.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. Let's just talk a little bit about, we wanted to give you some background on manufacturing CBD. Now, this part is out of the bill, but it could come back at any time. I'm sure it'll come back next year if it doesn't come back this year. And it's important just for you all to have some knowledge about what, first of all, CBD is. First of all, I didn't have this on the slide, but CBD is one of hundreds of components in marijuana. Marijuana is a very complex plant, and it has multiple constituents, most of which we don't even know about. We don't know what they do to us. We know about a handful of them. One of the ones we are learning about is called CBD, and that's what you've heard a lot from the CNN special and the other things that are out there now, reports and blogs and all kinds of different media talking about CBD. And I feel like they sort of talk about it as if it's A, magical elixir, and B, it can be just produced by anybody as long as you're growing some weed. The reality is that only sophisticated manufacturers can produce CBD in an appropriate manner. Most of the CBD companies that are out there, they are often actually companies that don't have much background in manufacturing, and so what happens is this so-called high CBD plant material product that they have often contains THC, sometimes in very significant amounts. Now, there will be some people that say, well, we need the THC. I'll get back on THC in a minute, but just sticking with CBD, first of all, you need very complex equipment to remove the THC from the plant. That is not an easy thing to do. Remember, THC has been bred into the plant over the last hundreds of years, and especially the last decades, in order to increase the psychoactivity, because THC is what gets you high. We don't think CBD gets you high. It acts on the brain in a different way. But research demonstrates that in many cases, large doses of CBD without the THC are needed to achieve a very specific therapeutic effect. So the idea that, as long as there's a little bit of CBD in there, we'll be fine, That's actually not, if you want to get the therapeutic effect, the new research coming out shows it needs to be larger amounts. But the problem is a child taking a so-called therapeutic dose of CBD, and that's according to, these manufacturers that are out there. Remember, CBD is not an approved FDA drug. We have no idea what the safe and efficacious dose is. But according to these manufacturers, if kids took the amount of CBD they're saying they should take, they will be potentially exposed to a very large amount of THC as well. So, for example, using a 10-to-1 preparation, a child who ingests 300 milligrams of CBD a day would also ingest 30 milligrams of THC. That's a lot. That's the equivalent of the highest dose Marinol that's out there, which would absolutely make anyone intoxicated. And remember, Marinol is a concentrated form of THC. It was approved in the mid-'80s for nausea, and that is pure THC only. And so imagine it's like taking 3 of the highest dose Marinol capsules. I mean, that is a lot of THC. It'll make any adult high. It's going to make absolutely any child high as well. And it's not just about them getting high, it's about their brain being exposed to what we would say is a neurotoxin, and we'll get into that in a second. So a 2-to-1 or even 1-to-1 plant ratio would contain, of course, even higher levels of THC. So 300 milligrams would be 150 for THC. That is like multiple edibles that are on the market. One edible is making an adult intoxicated. You put 5 of them together, that's a lot, especially for a young brain.
And Georgia's current law is at a 1-to-1 ratio.
Right, which is a lot. I mean, that is just so much. And, a lot of parents are saying, well, my kid needs THC. Maybe they do in very minute doses to go along with the CBD. But there's, as this slide says, there's absolutely no evidence that THC is needed for young patients, and it actually may harm them. So first of all, there's absolutely no scientific evidence that THC is necessary to synergize the effects of CBD. In fact, preclinical research shows that THC may cause seizures. We call it a proconvulsant, not something you want to give to a kid with a seizure disorder. And frankly, physicians are beginning to report instances of toxicity in children taking high CBD preparations. So anxiety, increased seizures, insomnia, etc. So there's such a myth out there that you need the THC to be part of the CBD preparation. I wanted to show a picture of what a typical dispensary in California looks like. Now, I have this in there because, again, original versions of the bill actually included dispensaries. Now, we don't know if it would look exactly like this, but really where this is happening, you could see this is not proper medicine. You could see the other pictures in that Santa Monica there, Venice Beach physicians. By the way, the woman is not a physician, but she's wearing a white coat. Children walking by. I mean, this is just, unfortunately, this is the end game because this is how they make money. Now remember, most of this is about money, and this is absolutely how they will make money, by advertising and recklessly promoting this. Why is THC important to understand in this case? Well, it's because whether you're a young brain or not a young brain, we have cannabinoid receptors and essentially THC receptors located throughout the brain, and they regulate brain development. They regulate all these parts of the brain, you've seen this picture before, that regulate all these parts of the brain that are crucial for development, including memory, motivational system, appetite, immune system, reproduction, movement, and in some cases pain regulation. And we do know that THC can be a pain analgesic because absolutely it makes you high, just like OxyContin, and so yes, that will take the pain away for that amount of time. Whether a child with seizures should be getting THC for pain is a completely different story, especially when you look at the different parts of the brain that THC actually affect. And you see, vision, sensations, movement, judgment, and reward and memory. And if you look at reward and memory, that's really the center of the brain that is determining whether you're addicted to something or not. The reward is how much you like what you just did, and that's the reward telling you that. And then the memory, remembering that you liked it, is crucial because that's what makes people go back and use again and again. let's look at how THC has been sort of traveling for the last 40 years, first of all. I mean, the average THC content now, this is 2011, there's later data we just got, but basically it's around 12.5%, 12% or so. That is much, I mean, that's 3 times as much as then from the mid-90s. And certainly it's almost 10 times more than it was during Woodstock. And CBD has been more or less bred out of the plant entirely. So CBD is not an atypical marijuana plant. That's what I was saying about you need very specialized methods to extract the CBD, because over time we have increased the THC, what gets you high, and we've almost bred out any CBD. In other words, any marijuana that people get from the street or even from most quote-unquote medical places, they don't have CBD in it because it's very hard to extract. Now let's go back to what's happening in Georgia. This is the maximum amount of THC percentage. We did a cross-state comparison here from NCSL, the National Conference of State Legislatures. And in these limited access, low THC, so-called high CBD states, only Virginia, and I think they even fought that back, so that this is a couple weeks old, but basically only Virginia's proposed law had the same amount of THC allowed as Georgia's. I mean, Georgia's is clearly trying to utilize this as a backdoor for THC. There is no reason why any child needs 5% THC. There's absolutely no scientific evidence saying that THC content at that level would be helpful for seizures disorder. Again, there's limited new evidence about CBD being helpful, and we want to promote that in a responsible way. But this bill is absolutely not doing that, and 5% THC, as you can see by comparison, this is not about low THC here. This is about high THC with 5%.
And no evidence that it would be helpful for autism, which is also included in the bill.
Absolutely. Anything else, Greg, on that?
Just wanted to thank Michael Mumford so much for preparing this chart for us. Michael Mumford is with Fiat Factor, and much appreciation for his work on this.
Great.
And the average of the other states here is 1.3%. I think that's a good stat to mention to legislators. If you happen to see any legislators or visit them, this is a great one-pager. They can take a look at this in 5 seconds and see what the situation is. And perhaps it will give us ground to push back on the 5% level.
So let's look at the problems with the current bill. First of all, this is a big problem. 13 new conditions have been added. So autism is now included in the new version of the bill. I'm guessing it's because, Greg, do you know why? Is it because somebody had autism in the state and lobbied for it?
Yeah, there are some parents out there who are lobbying very hard for the inclusion of autism. Yeah.
Right. So that means approximately 15% of children and adolescents who are given low THC oil on a regular basis, because 15% is the addiction rate if you're a child. Well, that's if you're 16, by the way, so this is a conservative number. It's also with old research based on low amounts of THC. So very conservatively, 15% of kids who are given low THC oil will become addicted to marijuana. And, you know, since THC is a neurotoxin for child and adolescent brain development, we're really worried about the long-term effects. There is no evidence that THC or CBD help for autism. There's none. No scientific evidence at all. There's anecdotes. I can understand that. The idea that 5% THC is a responsible level for that is just not based in any kind of scientific research. In fact, we had this quote before, but Dr. Hadlin at Boston Children's said, in using medicinal marijuana, parents may be trading away their child's future for short-term symptom control. In other words, like the symptoms of autism, the physical symptoms, yes, when your child is high, it's very possible they're just laying down and tired. And this is, I mean, it sounds a little heartless to say it like that, but really this is what it comes down to, folks. It's like giving someone who, you know, was angry and, someone who's about to commit abuse, giving them like heroin to calm them down. I mean, that's not getting to the abuse. That's making them dopey for an hour, and then it's gonna go back. And then the problem is, has long-term effects. And so Dr. Hadlin said, given the current scarcity of data, cannabis cannot be safely recommended for the treatment of developmental or behavioral disorders at this time at all. There's just no evidence for it. PTSD, the same thing. This is a tricky one because obviously we want everything for our vets, that they deserve. We want everything that they deserve. We want them to, they've been heroes. We want them to be rewarded when they come back. We want them to have a comfortable life. And PTSD is obviously a huge issue in the military right now. But the problem is 5% THC is not, there is no evidence that this is helpful. Again, it is like giving a soldier some whiskey or, some kind of hard liquor to take away the symptoms of something. So when they're drunk, they may not be thinking about the nightmares that are PTSD. When they're high, they may not be thinking about it. But the long-term effects of somebody with a mental disorder using 5% THC, it can be very harmful, given the connection to psychosis, schizophrenia, and other mental disorders.
And my experience in the treatment world in prior years was that so many patients who were addicted to marijuana had their anxiety and depression exacerbated by marijuana abuse, not solved by it. And of course there's a tremendous amount of repression when you're using drugs, so that all that anxiety can get stored up and the dam can break at any time. And it's just so unfortunate that I think this is going to add to the number of suicides we see by returning vets who are either abusing marijuana or have become addicted to it, or very unfortunately thinking they're doing good by taking, quote, medicine, end quote, end up becoming more depressed and very possibly increasing the risk of suicide.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Next slide. So what the Yale Medical School study author, there was a study on this, said psychiatrists and other providers give pause before they go ahead and give the green light for folks suffering from PTSD to smoke as much marijuana as they want, and consider that it might not help. It might even be associated with worsening of the disorder. And actually his study found a correlation between marijuana use and higher levels of PTSD, higher levels of alcohol abuse, and higher levels of violent behavior. So clearly, just no magic bullet, in fact, could be very harmful. But again, it's hard because some of our vets may feel better when they take marijuana, and we know they may feel better. We're not denying that. But the problem is, in the long term or medium term, it's absolutely hurting them, and it's masking their condition.
Oh, let me just say one thing, because we didn't have it in the next slide. I thought it might be, is that cannabis can lead to 5 mental disorders in and of itself, according to the American Psychiatric Association. So here we have 2 mental disorders that have been included in the bill, autism and PTSD, supposedly treated by THC oil, which in turn can create 1 to 5 additional mental disorders, according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association. If you just look up cannabis-related disorders and look at the symptoms, you just wonder why the legislature is doing this.
So the new disorders, they add new mental disorders. First of all, new mental conditions, I should say, no age minimum for children who receive THC oil. I mean, it is THC oil because it's 5%. For autism or PTSD, big issue, really, really, really big issue. And then no age minimum for AIDS, I mean, by the way, people are not getting, no one is taking Marinol for AIDS anymore. That was from the 80s and 90s. If you have HIV today, you're on the antiretroviral medications, and you are not withering away and need an appetite improvement. I mean, it's just, yes. But they throw it in there because it just sounds good, and we all have sympathy for that. Skin disorder, I mean, again, absolutely no evidence for that. IBS, Irritable Bowel Syndrome, I mean, again, no evidence for that. Some people have said it feels great. Again, this is why we need the proper research done. This is why we want people to get medications from a pharmacy. We want to do it the right way. This is clearly not the right way. Greg, anything on that?
One reason why IBS is so important to be taken out of the bill is that this condition, like severe pain, is extremely difficult for a physician to accurately document. So many could fake this condition in order to get the THC oil and be successful.
Other conditions, Parkinson's disease, peripheral neuropathy, Tourette's, and then terminal illness symptoms with a probable life expectancy of less than 2 years if the illness or its treatment produces severe pain, nausea, wasting. And wasting is usually, again, from HIV. It's just not there anymore. It's not a condition with HIV. And then ulcerative colitis. This is just a laundry list of things that, again, I mean, if you find one person with each of these things, for one person for each of these things, so 13 different people, it's going to be very difficult to beat back because it's the emotional argument. But there really is absolutely no evidence here for the conditions that they are talking about.
And that was exactly the strategy that was used where you had patients with these various conditions brought in to the hearing in the House. And let me say, by the way, that none of the witnesses that our team had proposed, including one of our collaborative members who's a father who lost his daughter to marijuana, were allowed to testify. We were initially told that our witnesses would be allowed to testify. That did not occur.
Yeah, exactly. And Greg, do we know, is it, again, were these 13 just chosen out of the air, or were they chosen because there were specific advocates that lobbied for them?
Probably a combination of both, and I think, and Kevin, you may know better than I think they looked at some other states' legislation and said, oh, well, they're doing it, so why don't we do it?
Right. Yeah, I mean, again,
the bill sponsor did say he got some input from Emory University on some of these conditions. Which ones, I don't know.
Okay, we'd love to know where in Emory. I mean, that's just, again, you should ask for them to be putting it in writing and put their name to it. They can't do that because there's absolutely no evidence for any of this. So, conditions in the current law that HB 722 expands. So they delete the narrow allotment for example, Lou Gehrig's, when it was severe or end stage. That's gone. Cancer, not end stage, gone. MS, not end stage, gone. Crohn's disease, Parkinson's disease, and sickle cell anemia, no more at end stage. So again, sometimes we could say, well, there's no evidence for it, but if somebody with end stage cancer wants a THC oil, then we're not going to be wanting to get on their back about it and be opposed to it. But this is not what this is about. They just deleted all of the end stage, probably because advocates weren't happy with it. It was way too narrow for them.
You can track the 722 status by Googling GAHB 722 2016. So it's easily done and should bring it right up when you Google for that. And you can see the bill's current status and other information about the bill. You'll see that the House vote, unfortunately, was overwhelmingly yes. They did vote on a pared down version. That's the good news. But as Dr. Sabet has been telling you, the pared down version still contains a lot of things which we don't want to see happen. So the bill has been assigned to the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, chaired by Senator Unterman of Beaufort. So if any of you are from the Beaufort area, or even Gwinnett County, extremely important for you to contact the Senator's office and let them know that some of what you've heard in today's session. We'll go into a bit more of that in the next few slides. The committee has not heard the bill yet, which is really good news for us. There's very little time left in this session for them to hear the bill. Just 2 more committee meetings are scheduled to be held. Tomorrow at noon, and then Monday is the last hearing. So if it doesn't get heard by the committee, that's a good thing. So 3 things could happen at one of these meetings. The best option would be if the committee opts not to hear the bill at all. Somehow I doubt that will happen because, again, the House vote was so overwhelmingly for the bill. So there's a lot of pressure from the House for the bill to be heard. The governor's office has been very wise about this and really does not like the bill. So that's a great help. The second option is that the bill could be heard or reviewed and possibly voted on favorably by the committee, in which case it would then move to the full Senate for a vote. Or the bill could be heard and reviewed by the committee and then voted down, which would also be wonderful. So there are the Health and Human Services Committee members. It would be great if you'd make a phone call to them. Time is of the essence because, again, we're talking about the bill possibly being heard or not heard by noon tomorrow. So if a phone call could be made before then, especially important if your senator happens to be on that Health and Human Services Committee. And if you're unsure about that, you can, call their office, give them your address. And there are other ways that are on the ClearGA website to identify who your senator is if you may not know them at this point. But even if your senator is not on the committee, it's still important, especially to call the chair's office. And of course, it's very doubtful that you'd get her on the phone, but you could speak to one of their staff, and you could speak to the staff of any of these committee members. Senator Huffstetler from Rome is the vice chair of the committee, so he's another important senator to speak with about this. So I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. If anybody's a Latin expert, let me know. Sin die is when the Senate adjourns. That is what is said at midnight of the last day by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. And that's coming up fairly soon, March 24th. I don't know if other state legislators work this way, and maybe Kevin could let us know, but in Georgia it's very strange that our session lasts 40 work days, and even on the 40th day, House Bill 722 could be tacked on to some other bill which is related in some way, and go through a conference committee and then be voted on by both the Senate and the House and actually pass. And this happens, I've been there when this has happened with some other bills. So we have to be vigilant up until the very last day of the session. Even if the committee does not hear the bill, even if the Health and Human Services Committee does not vote on the bill, it could still be tacked on to some other bill. So if you are going to call a Health and Human Services Committee member, these are the major points to mention because you're not going to have that long on the phone with them before they're going to want to hang up unless you happen to get an interested staff member. And sometimes that does happen if the senator himself or herself is particularly interested in this bill. And, you know, this is a very sexy bill. There's a lot of attention given to it, so you may get more time on the phone than somebody else would. But, you know, to let them know about Georgia and Virginia being so relatively high, no pun intended, and the other states averaging only 1.3% THC. There are two classifications of states, and I doubt that they will ask you about this, but there are 23 other states with comprehensive medical marijuana laws where in many cases the sky's the limit. But we're just dealing with states like ours called limited access states. And so among those states, our THC percentage is very high. More than enough to addict at least 15%, and as Kevin said, that's a conservative percentage, and 9% of adults who are probably going to be taking this oil every day because supposedly it's medicine with a daily dosage. Kevin, anything on that?
No, that's exactly right. 5% THC is not low by any stretch of the imagination, and depending on how many milligrams of CBD are in there, you know, it can be really problematic.
And of course, we haven't been talking about, you know, if you take twice as much THC oil at 5%, you know, that increases it to 10%. So this is an expression from Bill Bennett, the former Education Secretary. Medicine by Legislative Fiat. It's really many good-hearted legislators with good intentions don't realize the impact when legislators may act in the role of physicians. So you know, we've talked about the 17 new conditions, the 6 conditions that would be expanded by taking out severe or end-stage portion of the definitions. We've talked about how cannabis use can cause mental disorders in and of itself. So you're adding a mental disorder very possibly to another mental disorder or to a physical disorder, making it that much more difficult to deal with the physical order as it needs to be dealt with. The House Committee never did hear from a physician during testimony. House Judiciary Committee is just that. They're a Judiciary Committee and not a Health and Human Services Committee. And the 1-to-1 CBD ratio has been removed from the bill, only that CBD must be present in the oil. And if some of you may remember back to when this first started, the bill was supposed to be about CBD oil. That changed the next year to THC oil. So kind of where we started with all this for the children with the intractable epilepsy has kind of been forgotten. The bill sponsors are seeing other modalities as being more helpful. Kevin, do you want to speak about these differences?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, you know, there is a difference between lobbying and education. And first of all, if you're not speaking on behalf of your organization, you can act as an individual and tell them to vote no. It's your right. But if you're a government employee, you absolutely should check with your supervisor first. I would recommend, frankly, it's a difficult line, obviously. And education, and just in terms of, you know, even speaking on your own behalf and saying, I would like to educate you about this bill, about the 5% issue, about the addiction potential, etc., probably makes more sense. Education is simply talking about the bill and talking about the issue. It's not telling them how to vote.
Just there are some fantastic websites out there. If you need more resources, clearga.org has 20 educational tracks that Dr. Sabet has given us a great deal of input on. Just about every topic regarding marijuana that you could imagine is included in those tracks, which are multimedia tracks. So there are video excerpts that you can get, and of course all of that is for free. National Families in Action, Sue Rushi, has put together a tremendous website on the marijuana report. Excerpts of articles, again, on just about every topic imaginable that you might need for research or other purposes. Kevin, would you like to talk about your website?
Sure. This is the SAM website. It's really considered everybody's website. It's learnaboutsam.org. There's a toolkit, all kinds of talking points. We actually have 2 resources on there. You have to sort of search for them, but they're there. One is everything you need to know about CBD, so that could be something that is shared with legislators about what it actually is, what the controversies are, what the research is, and then finally there's something in there about researching marijuana's medicinal components responsibly and about how we could do that responsibly on a federal level without breaking laws, without jeopardizing public health. And, states can absolutely pass resolutions urging the feds to be responsible in that way. And so, we encourage you to use it. We encourage you to use it with your legislators, and there's also many other resources on the site.
Very good. So, again, you see attachments there to the right of your screen. These may be the last few moments. If you want to download any of those, you can just download them by going to that the name of the attachment on the right side of your screen. They will also be posted on clearga.org. You can also get them there. If you should have questions that come to mind after the webinar is over, please feel free to email me those questions, and I can pass them on to Dr. Sabet so we can answer those questions on the website and also in the next webinar. Comments or questions?
Ellen Gerstein wanted to know who added the new conditions to the bill.
Well, we know that ultimately the person who added the conditions was Representative Peake. All have heard him say, particularly with the removal of the severe or end stage portion of the definitions of those 6 conditions, he got input from Emory University. So that at this point is as much as I can tell you. And as Kevin said, there was also input from parents or patients, parents whose children had those conditions, or patients themselves who had those conditions. Of course, other input was, other states are doing it, so why don't we do it as well? If I hear anything more on that, Ellen, I will sure get back to you with more specifics. Any other questions?
That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for all you're doing. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's webinar. Many, many thanks to Dr. Sabet for his very courageous and informed work. He's helping so many of us around the country to prevent marijuana abuse.
Well, I want to thank all of you, and I very much appreciate all of the work everyone is doing. And I know it's tough, but you should know you have people behind you. You have a national movement behind you. I should also, I'm going to have to plug it here if you don't mind, Greg. March 31st in Atlanta, so it happens to be in your state.
Yeah, please.
It's going to be our National SAM Summit, Marijuana Summit, happening right there in Atlanta at the Westin Peachtree. You can get more information. We're doing it in conjunction with the National RX Summit, so this is going to be Thursday the 31st. You can register on the same site as the National RX Summit. A wonderful agenda with the head of DEA, head of FDA, head of CSAP, all attending and speaking, actually, all speaking. We're going to give a national update, so would love to have you all there on March 31st in Atlanta. Registration is happening right now, and sooner the better to register because the price will also go up.
And you can find links to both of those conferences at clearga.org. The SAM Summit is just terrific. I highly recommend it. If you really want to get even more inspired, motivated regarding this work, and informed, as Dr. Sabet was saying, the best experts from around the country gathered to present at this summit. So with that, again, many thanks for attending. Hope you will contact the Senate committee members, and hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.